And the information with respect to those expenditures and how they were being spent was not shared with me at the time when I was the minister.
Did you ask for it?
Get him. Get him.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. The ArriveCan tsunami is gaining momentum, and it's now making its way into the mainstream media, where they are finally questioning Liberal ministers about it. Today we witnessed Vasikopoulos take down Minister Bill Blair, who was Minister of Public Safety during the time that the app was developed. And as you would expect, he doesn't do well at all.
Let's take a look.
I want to turn, Minister, to something that's generated a lot of reaction this week domestically, the Auditor General's report into ArriveCan. She said of the various agencies that were involved in that app, including the CBSA, which you oversaw at the time as Public Safety Minister, that there was a, quote, glaring disregard for basic management practices, and that she couldn't even conclusively say that the app cost $60 million because so few financial records exist. Were you ever made aware as your time, were you ever made aware during your time as Minister that something was not right with this app?
So Bill Blair has that look of confusion that he always does, and it doesn't look like he's thrilled to be getting this question.
Would you?
Not if I was Bill Blair. Because if I was Bill Blair, I'd be an incompetent senior citizen that needs to go to the retirement home.
No, unfortunately not. I can tell you, even well before the pandemic, the Canadian the CBSA had indicated a plan to develop an app, and the costs were actually much lower than it's currently being described. The purpose of that app was to actually expedite and make more efficient the arrival process for Canadian travelers who were returning to Canada, so that they could use that app to present their travel documents, and that it would actually present a much lighter touch upon their arrival. And during the pandemic, I know that there were other uses of that particular app, but at no time was information provided to my ministry or frankly to us about with respect to those expenditures. I think the Auditor General's report has been very useful. CBSA has already indicated that they accept all of her recommendations. There's also an investigation that is, I understand, is taking place with the RCMP. When the well-established procurement processes, there are checks and balances in those processes, and when they're not followed, it is important that people be held to account. I'm actually very grateful for the work of the Auditor General, and look forward to the work of CBSA and the RCMP to make sure that where processes weren't followed appropriately, that people are held to account.
So isn't it funny? Well, it's not really funny.
Not ha-ha funny anyway.
It's frustrating that whenever Bill Blair talks about anything, literally anything that goes on with his agency and his department, he never knows anything.
None of these ministers ever know anything. Do you recall when his replacement, Marco Mendicino, was saying, oh, I didn't know that Paul Bernardo was getting out of prison, or not getting out of prison, but sending to a lesser security prison. You know, nobody, I guess, in that department tells the minister anything. Allegedly.
But it was Bill Blair who also said, oh, well, I didn't get any email, regarding any of the foreign interference stuff that was sent up by CSIS. No, nobody told me that. Like, none of these guys manage their departments at all. Or they do manage their departments and they're lying. Or maybe it's both. This is the whole frustrating issue here. And for these Liberals to now come out and say, oh, I appreciate all of the work that the Auditor General has done. All of you assholes voted against it. The NDP and the Conservatives and the Bloc actually voted for this to happen. All of you voted against it. Why would you vote against that?
Because you're trying to hide something. That's why.
Exactly. All of you idiots over there, you talk about this, this transparent government. You're as transparent as a brick wall. And there must be something going on, because you're all saying the same thing. Oh, well, the CBSA has already accepted all the recommendations. Yeah, you want that to be the end of the story, don't you? Well, It's not. It is far from being the end of this story.
You were an informed minister, as public safety minister. Why didn't you ask? Why didn't you ask about the cost ballooning? Why didn't you ask to see the records? Why didn't you ask about a paper trail at any time? You were the minister ultimately responsible for 60 million taxpayer dollars that have seemed to generate zero value for Canadians.
Yes, ma'am. And the information with respect to those expenditures and how they were being spent was not shared with me at the time when I was the minister.
Did you ask for it?
Atta girl, Vashi. Get him. Get him.
What's that?
Did you ask for it?
Frankly, there was no indication that those expenditures were taking place. The normal procurement procedures should have, if they had been followed, allowed for a proper accounting of those expenditures. My understanding is that that did not take place, and that information, therefore, was not shared up the chain.
Respectfully, though, when you saw that the app was not developing as it had been outlined it could, did you ever think, I should ask what's going on with this thing, how much it's costing taxpayers, why things aren't going the way that they should?
Well, that's assuming he was actually paying attention to the thing, right? You know, the most significant app that's been developed in the federal government, probably in the history of Canada, because of all of the opposition to vaccines and all of the protesting going on against vaccine mandates and all of this stuff. But you didn't think to pay attention to that? So this is the whole problem with this Liberal government. It's always one of three possibilities. Either they're corrupt as all hell, either they're incompetent as all hell, or it's both.
I'm going to say both.
Because there's no middle ground here. Like, he's the one saying, oh, well, you know, that was never pushed up the chain. What, you never asked about how the ArriveCan app is going? You know, the one piece of technology that the entire Liberal government was relying on to, quote unquote, open the borders. You didn't think that you may want to say, hey, so how's that going? How much are we spending on this thing anyway? You said that you were given the initial cost. You didn't think to follow up on that?
Now, I would imagine that the minister would not have eyes on every single project that happens under their ministry.
Absolutely.
And some of them may have multiple government departments as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
So they're not going to know absolutely every single thing that happens under their umbrella. But I would expect something as big as the ArriveCan app, and I don't mean as big financially because it wasn't supposed to cost this much. What I mean is it was, like Cypher said, supposed to open up borders. It was supposed to be this revolutionary new way for Canadians to come back home, for Canadians to travel, and for people from abroad to come into Canada. It was supposed to be this revolutionary tool. One would think that the minister of that department would have at least some knowledge of what was going on with that.
Well, and to the point, there's thousands of projects that go on, you know, every year within the government. And no, the ministers aren't going to know about every one of them. But what they will do is keep their eye on the high profile ones, because those are going to be the ones that they happen to either gain or get hurt politically from. So they better know what's going on with those ones, because they could be asked at any moment when it comes to a press conference. So of course they're going to know what those are. But here's this guy completely oblivious to what's going on, allegedly.
And the inflated costs were not shared with the ministry at that time. That information subsequently came out as a result of that work was done, first of all, at CBSA and then subsequently by the Auditor General. That information is deeply concerning, and that information should have been shared.
Ultimately, do you bear some responsibility, though, as minister who oversaw the CBSA at this time, for not ensuring there was value for taxpayer money? I understand the information, as you put it, wasn't shared with you, but you didn't ask to see it.
Go get him. Go get him. And she is 100% right. Doesn't matter if you saw it or not. Doesn't matter if you knew about it or not. You're responsible. You're the minister.
Well, and again, the fact that he wouldn't know about it seems extremely unlikely, just given the facts that we just mentioned.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Frankly, I don't believe it was shared with the president of CBSA either. And
what? That's quite the assertion, buddy.
And the president at the time would have been Oswowski?
John Osowski, yeah. You're trying to say that the president of the agency wasn't made aware of what the ArriveCan app was costing. And subsequently, you're also asserting by that is that John Osowski didn't ask. So nobody asks about how much anything costs in this government.
And therefore, there is obviously important accountability that must take place. That is taking place as a result of the recommendations made by the Auditor General and the investigation that is now taking place. I understand that there are individuals who may, and I'm going to be careful here, have engaged in misconduct. Ultimately, Vashi, I always accept my responsibility as the minister, but at the same time, I think it's important to acknowledge if information is not shared up through a management chain and people are engaged in misconduct, when that misconduct is determined and detected and evidence of it is available, then people need to be held to account. Those processes are taking place now that information is known.
There you go. It is revealed that the Liberals are going to try and scapegoat only Cameron McDonald and Tony Utano.
Of course they are. But the thing about all this is, say the minister didn't know that they were creating this app. Well, once it got to over $1 million, the minister would have to sign off on the documents for that money. So there's no more excuse anymore. Absolutely, the minister would have known.
Well, and in this case, it may not have been the minister. It may have been the parliamentary secretary to the minister, but that's still on behalf of the minister.
Right. Somebody knows. Somebody in that minister's office knows.
And welcome to accountability. You want to make the big bucks. You want to sit in the office. You want to have the title. You have to accept the accountability that goes with that.
Well, and that's the thing. I know nobody likes being wrong. Nobody likes feeling like they've failed. But you just have to accept responsibility and decide what you're going to do to fix things right now and also moving forward. I think that would gain the respect of Canadians more than just being like, oh, I don't know, I didn't hear about it.
Well, and here's one really problematic thing that Bill Blair said, and this indicates that he is lying through his teeth. When did he say that they found out about the cost? He said this was only revealed the investigation the CBSA is doing and the Auditor General. Well, that's a flat out lie. We knew the cost over a year ago.
No, but again, his office should have known about the cost when they had to sign that paperwork.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, like, discount all of that. Discount all of that. We knew that this cost $54 million over a year ago. Why? Because they had committee hearings on it. That's where we first heard of Christian Firth. And that's why the Auditor General was voted to do the investigation in the first place. These Liberals can't even get their lies right. So it's no wonder that this is building momentum. So much so that we took a peek at what's happening this week, folks. So it's going to be a busy week for ArriveCan because the Standing Committee for Public Accounts is having no less than 2 meetings on this. In the first meeting on Tuesday, February 20th, they are meeting with the Auditor General, her team, and what's interesting is the executives from Public Health Canada, the folks that received bonuses of $340,000.
Interesting.
So I imagine the Conservatives are going to have more questions for them than they are for the actual Auditor General and her team. And one very interesting committee meeting that's coming up this week is OGO. So they're meeting on Tuesday as well between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who's going to be the witness? We don't know yet.
To be determined. You think that maybe they're going to drag Christian Firth in against his will?
I would love it. I would love to see like them.
That would be incredible.
Literally dragging him and kicking and screaming.
The RCMP bringing him in cuffs. That would be amazing.
So those are the first two. The second two is the Standing Committee of Public Accounts. They're going to be meeting with, again, the Auditor General and her team, and the people from Public Service Procurement Canada. Remember the people who said all of the processes were followed? Yeah, those people.
You know, those processes that weren't followed.
Right. That were completely disregarded. Yeah, those
ones.
people.
Yeah.
Those people. And then OGO is meeting again on Wednesday. And we don't know the significance of this, but it is interesting. They are meeting with Carolyn Maynard, who is the Information Commissioner of Canada.
What does that mean?
I'm very interested in what Carolyn Maynard is going to be discussing here. So this is a witness kind of out of left field.
What's an information commissioner? So neither of us actually knew what an information commissioner was, so we looked it up.
And now I instantly know why she's coming to committee. So the Office of the Information Commissioner, their role is to carry out confidential investigations into complaints about federal institutions' handling of access requests, giving both complaints and institutions the opportunity to present their positions. So,
are these regarding those A-type requests?
Well, I think it's about a few things. Number one, the information that is coming out of CBSA to committee, a lot of it's redacted. That's a problem. And number two, there's the 4 years of missing emails under Mindone. And there's the trouble of the A-tip request, as Fox said. So that's probably why they're bringing her in. And to see if there's any ongoing investigation, or if there has been an investigation, or maybe it's to move to ask for an investigation. So that might be a very interesting one to look at. So what we may look at doing, folks, is we may look at doing a live stream on the Tuesday. And it'll either be on the Public Accounts Committee with the Health Canada folks, or if there's some ridiculous high-profile witness that comes into OGO, then we'll be covering that. It'll be one or the other, not both. And then on the next day, this might be one that we actually take a look at. But there's going to be so much ArriveCan content next week. It's going to take us a full week to actually get all the videos out. So next week is ArriveCan Week 2.0, but this is the thing, folks. This is expanding. And, you know, the media is covering this. The National Post is continuing to say that this might bring down the government. And we're inclined to start to agree with that, because this is big. The amount of systemic corruption that this might expose. It may force the fall of this government one way or another. Well,
Mr. McCauley certainly wasn't joking when he said they were bringing everybody into committee.
Yeah, like everybody is coming into OGO, whether you like it or not. So I'm all for it. Bring them in front of the Conservative Dream Team, and let's get the truth.